Never really noticed how big the head is. Welcome back to Weekly Reader. Can you believe it's 2 weeks in a row? I feel like I'm on course to become like a proper YouTuber now. Madness. But here we are. It's Friday morning. I have the time to do it. I've read some books this week. It has been a relatively no, it hasn't been quiet at all. I've read quite a lot, but I've read a lot more single issues. Focused a lot more on the pull list. There's been a few single issues I was looking forward to getting into this week. And I've only read one graphic novel, but I have also watched a TV show on Netflix. I know this is Weekly Reader, but I mean, I'm not going to do a show called Weekly Watcher because I don't watch that much. But I will talk about it here at the end. So if you're interested, I'll tag it on the end of this video. I've even taken some notes like a professional. Mad. Radiant Black Volume 1. It's the first book I read this week. I've actually collected Radiant Black since the start. I have all the single issues. But I haven't actually read it, which is mad because it's been going on now for maybe 4 years. Kyle Higgins is the creator of this. He had history with the Power Rangers, so I think he kind of wanted to do something similar within the Power Rangers, but maybe on his own thing, his own kind of IP as such. So Radiant Black is very similar to Power Rangers, by the way, in terms of theme and kind of tone to it, but we'll get into that. So for me, it is a solid start of a story. Basically, it follows this guy called Ethan Burnett. Now, Ethan, he's a failed writer. He's moving back in with his parents. He has no money. He can't get a loan from the bank. He kind of struggles through life a little bit. For me, there's parallels between him and Peter Parker. In terms of he just can't get things right in his personal life. He goes back home. And he basically stumbles across this little radiant black hole type of thing, which he grabs and then becomes the Radiant Black. It's so simple, so simplistic, but it works. This volume basically follows of how he kind of struggles to be this, have this power and understand what this power is, whilst obviously trying to get his life back on track. And it's just him. He's a bit too cautious, maybe a bit too. He's a wimp. Let's be brutally honest, and he doesn't know how to handle it. But I mentioned earlier on, there's parallels with Peter Parker. It's the same idea. He's just struggling to get his real life in order, but he has this kind of power now that's like, he's struggling. Like, what should he do with it? Should he do good with it? His mate in his ear saying, rob banks, get some money, and do this and that. But he's like, no, I can't do that. It's not the right thing to do. And like I say, there are also hints at the Power Rangers as well, because you find out later on in the volume there are other people like him. There's a red one, there's a blue one, there's a yellow one, I think there's a green one. So this is a solid start to the book. Let's say solid. The first 2 issues were quite easy, quite simple. This kind of like happened, and you accept the fact that it happens. But the last few issues get a little bit better. He discovers the Radiant Red, and they have a few battle scenes, and they kick the crap of one another, and then there's other things happening, because you realise that there's this overall big bad is coming, and they need to be ready for it. And basically, it's Power Rangers with a different name, and I'm here for it. The art's fantastic. It's vibrant. It's dynamic. It kind of complements the energy of the book, of the story. Radiant Black Volume 1, solid start. I'll be looking forward to reading on to this, but let's see what happens. Moving on to my single issues, I'll try and do these in kind of, say worst to best. There was nothing bad I read this week, to be fair. The Amazing Spider-Man. So we are in the midst of the 8 deaths of Spider-Man. So I read issue 62 to 65, Dot Death. The Dot Death it's just a side issue. We had number 65, and the following week is 65 Dot Death. We'll get to that. Essentially what this is, and I'm not a fan of Doctor Strange, so I don't know what's happened previously in other books, but Doctor Doom has become the Sorcerer Supreme. Like previously, the Sorcerer Supreme had this deal with this god called Sidorak. I'm not sure who that is. But they had this thing where they would battle one another every so often, And if Sidorak wins, he wins the control of the Covenant, and if Doctor Strange wins, he gets extra power in order to protect the Earth. Whatever. I'm not into the whole magic thing, to be brutally honest. But if you're a Doctor Strange fan and never read Spidey, maybe this is the time for you to jump on. So basically, Doctor Doom doesn't want to do this as the Sorcerer Supreme. He assigns Spidey as his champion. So he has to fight all the different Scions of Sidorak, so his children basically. And like I said, there's all these things at stake. But the 8 deaths comes from the fact that Doctor Doom's given Peter Parker these kind of life-restoring reeds. They're just some blue stringy things that restores his life. So he has died 3 times at this point, but he's also defeated each of the kind of warriors he's faced, and there's more to come. The standard issue so far was number 65. So 65, that was one where he came up to battle with this warrior. Now she didn't actually want to fight him, but what she did is give him this like crystal ball type of thing, and she showed Peter Parker death. This is what death looks like, and it showed him, Gwen Stacy, Uncle Ben, his parents, like deaths he's seen and been through, and Peter's like, I've done this, I've been there, done that, I can deal with that. But then she proceeds to show him MJ, Aunt May, Robbie Robertson, J. Jonah Jameson, all these kind of future deaths that's going to happen. And obviously it's hard for him to take, and he's struggling to kind of, he's not just seeing it, he's feeling it, the emotions of it. And then going forward, she decides to show him death of all the random innocent civilians, the people he's trying to protect. And the moral of the story essentially is that we all die, and these heroes, these people of family and friends of Peter Parker, and all the people who died, they're insignificant in the context of the universe. They don't die martyrs, they don't die saving the world, they don't die change anything, they die, and it doesn't seem to matter. And that's where the kind of turmoil is for Peter, because he's thinking, I'm going through all this hardship in my own life, and what's it matter? Why should I care? Because we're all going to die anyway. And that's kind of the message that she's getting through to him. So she essentially won that battle, because Peter Parker he's like, why be Spider-Man? What is the point? What's the point of all this? Spider-Man's been a weird book for quite a while. The last 2 or 3 years, I think we've had a mismatch of different writers and creators on it. They can't seem to get one person to steer it forward in a certain direction. We had Nick Spencer's run, which is quite indifferent for a lot of people. Seb Wells came on board. Dreadful run. John Romita Jr. was on the art a lot. He's come back onto the art, for goodness sake. John Romita Jr. But essentially what it is now, like Joe Kelly's doing this story, he's going to reboot this in April himself with a different artist as well going forward. So I'm still happy to read this. I'm a Spider-Man fan. You gotta take the good with the bad. This is okay. This is not the worst. This is probably the best it's been in about 2 years. So yeah, I mean, if you're a Spider-Man fan, enjoy it for what it is. If you're a casual fan, I would maybe leave this out for a while. Like I said, it's due to reboot in April. The only problem is it's going to be Joe Kelly again on writing duties. I'm pretty certain John Romita Jr. will be. I don't think he's going to be the main artist. He might be a fill-in artist, or maybe they're sharing artist duties. JR, something else. Yeah, it's like Marmite. You love him or hate him. Where do you think I fall? So next up, I read a book called Behemoth from Dark Horse. Now this might have been last week, but I'm 1 or 2 weeks behind. I'm not really sure where this fell. I don't know this creative team, but it's written by Grant Sputor and Ryan Engel. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they've done before, but this is a very, very good, solid story. Jay Martin is on art. So this follows a girl called Sarah who lives and works out of like a food truck, and she's grafting. She's working extra hours in like a warehouse factory. Struggles a little bit with money, but she's upbeat and trying to be optimistic and all the rest of it. So she seems like a good, solid character you can follow. We also meet a detective called Jack. Now Jack is summoned to the shores of Lower Manhattan because thousands of fish have washed up on shore. turns out that, you know, there's something in the water. Next thing you see this huge big tidal wave and things. Listen, there's only slight spoilers. I can't stop it, but we'll see. And then Lower Manhattan starts to flood, and everyone's running away, and Sarah's running away. And then what happens is that Sarah and Jack and a few others get on this bus to make their getaway. But then this big kind of, I say kaiju, but it's like a dragon. It's like a, I don't know, some sort of monster that's humongous. This behemoth of a monster. Like I say, they jump in the bus, they try to get away, they're on one of the bridges of New York, but then the monster basically gobbles them up whole, essentially. And the issue ends with them in the pit of the stomach of this big, huge monster. And, you know, it was a wee bit intense, it was action-packed, it was a bit weird in a way, but I'm here for it. The art was solid. If you're into big monsters, big kaijus, you know, destroying Manhattan, get on board. It's not a new kind of concept or idea, but I'm here for it, so get on it. The Ultimate Wolverine. So this is written by Chris Condon and art by Alessandro Capuccio. Don't know who that is, but Chris Condon I've read. He was part of the That Texas Blood, and there's something, he's in a really good wrestling issue. What was that called? I forget. It's like a one-shot wrestling issue. It was fantastic. Behind the Ropes, or Inner Circle, or Squared Circle, or something. I can't remember, but something like that anyway. It is a Squared Circle. That's a one shot. If you're a wrestling fan, read it. Fantastic. But anyway, Ultimate Wolverine. So the Ultimate Universe at the minute is the Maker, which is the ultimate version of Reed Richards. He's basically in control, where he's created this world where no heroes ever existed. So Spider-Man, for example, he was never bitten by a radioactive Spider-Man. And I'm not reading the other ones, I'm assuming they're the same. He basically prevented them from getting their superpowers, so he can kind of control this world. Wolverine, this is this world's version of the Winter Soldier. So Logan, something happens, he loses his memories, and then his memories are wiped, and he gets reprogrammed by the Eurasian Republic, ruled with an iron fist, under Colossus, Magic, and Omega Red. So they use him against, like, you know, to complete their missions. Essentially, it's like up against the North American Union. So he's the Winter Soldier. He comes in, completes his mission, kills a lot of people, and gets out. But he's sent in for this one mission, and it's up against Mystique, and up against what's the guy? Nightcrawler. Which is obviously in the main continuity is a good friend of Logan's. It gets a little bit emotional at this point, and then you find out, or certainly I felt it was more emotional given the fact that Wolverine Logan was so unemotional with what he mission accomplished, so to speak. And yeah, like, it's honestly a solid start to this Wolverine book. I mean, The Ultimate Spider-Man is probably Marvel's best book at the minute. I'm not reading too much Marvel, to be honest, but this is probably going to become one of the other good books I would recommend. So here for the second one, go and check it out for sure and see where it goes. Another Distillery release this week, and it's Scott Snyder and Jock, and they released a book called You Won't Feel a Thing. I'm not a big fan of the Distillery books, because even though I showed you this book, and this is the magazine size book, they're hard to store. There's no back on boards for them. They don't fit in my short boxes. I hate getting them. But I checked this out anyway. This follows a guy called John, who's a retired detective of sorts. He's been involved in different agencies like BAU and so forth. And all his career, he hunted down serial killers. But there was this one serial killer who evaded him, called the Chatterman. Now, the Chatterman's a guy who, when he kills his victims, he brutalizes them, beats them, stabs them, uses an axe, all sorts of things, like real brutal death. By the way, this book is not for young children. It's not for all ages. Definitely kind of more towards the adult adult audience. So anyway, so this killer's evaded him. So he takes a tooth from each victim and puts it on his mask, so in theory, whenever he's approaching you, the teeth chatter, and that's why he's called the Chatterman. and you find out that John has a history of him, or history with him, because the Chatterman is believed to have been the one that killed his teenage sweetheart, his first love, and this is obviously haunts him. But you find out John's like, he's ill. He's I think he's had a brain tumor. He's terminal to an extent, but I don't think they know the time frame of when he's going to go. So he's living in a home, assisted living, and he has a carer, but he's still involved with his friends who are in the police force as detectives, and they kind of throw him a bone every now and then and try and get him to get involved. But there are a lot of flashbacks, and there's a lot of things happening where he kind of passes out and then wakes up in a different room, and it's a real psychological thriller. But I'm struggling to find out like what's real. Is he really a detective? Is he imagining all this? Is the Chatterman real? Is he the Chatterman? I just think there's a lot of things that could happen with this. But as a first issue on this run, I'm here for it. It's dark, it's intriguing, and like I say, it's not for kids. So please approach with caution if you're at all worried about blood or body parts on paper. So that's it for my reading portion. I was hoping to get a few other books, notably Reckless. I don't know if you've seen this week, but Sebastian Stan, who played the Winter Soldier in the MCU, he's been cast as Reckless. So this is the Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips run. There's about 5 books in total. I've read the first one, but I wanted to read some of these before for this week, but that's something to look forward to next week, I suppose. The TV show I was talking about was on Netflix, and it was called Black Doves. The main star of this show was Keira Knightley, and this is the first time I've seen Keira Knightley in a real kind of kick-ass, action-packed type of role. She is part of the Black Doves organisation, and she basically marries a pretty high-ranking politician who obviously partners, what's the word, kind of works closely with the Prime Minister of England, and but she's essentially a spy, and she works along a guy called Sam, played by Ben Whishaw, and you'll know him because he played Q in the more recent James Bond movies. And their kind of handler, their kind of director of the organisation they work for is a character called Reed, played by Sarah Lancashire, who, if you've watched TV for a long time, you'll know her as Raquel from Coronation Street in the 90s, and she's come a long way. Fair play to her.
What you learn, you take it with you through life.
Such as?
Well, teach you about social etiquette, huh? How to present yourself in public.
What this is so the Chinese ambassador dies. It's not a spoiler because it's like the start of the show, and there's this kind of cover up, and you get the Chinese, you get the Americans, you get the British, you've got this other organisation, you've got all these underground gangs and trigger men and all sorts, all kind of involved, and Keira Knightley's trying to unravel this kind of mystery. Like I say, she's married this politician not through love, but essentially through her job. She's feeding back kind of like government secrets back to the Black Doves, back to the agency. But yeah, it's genuinely really, really interesting, really, really good. It's dark enough, but it's not like it's all completely grim. There are a few comical moments throughout, and there's a lot of blood too, to be fair, and a lot of killing, shooting, stabbings, all the rest of it. Really good action-packed series. It's 6 episodes in total. I think there's due to be a season 2. This only came out there in December. Definitely worth a watch. I think we're meant to watch it at Christmas time because it kind of concludes on Christmas Day, and it's all Christmas carol and singing and all the rest of it. So yeah, but check it out. Black Dove's really good, really interesting, really enjoyed it. So that concludes this week's weekly reader with a sprinkle of TV in there, but this is Philly fiction after all. I mean, storytelling is what I love, and it comes in all shapes and sizes and all forms. Just to touch on last week, it's when I kind of had a soft reboot of my channel. I had a lot of comments in the videos. I had people messaging on Instagram, all very positive, all very welcoming, and I'm glad to be part of it. So thank you very much for all that, and people who are supporting, and for all your kind words. Long may this continue. I want to continue this as long as I can. Really enjoy it. Enjoy the interaction. Please comment below anything you've read here, anything you think sounds interesting, or anything you think I should read maybe. But yeah, thanks very much. I'll see you next week.